think you should go a little bit to the right.
Yeah, I like that. Just a little bit. How's that?
That's good.
Yeah? Good. Thanks, guys.
In Shalom. So right here we have a map or a poster that I just ordered a couple weeks ago. The heritage of the Anglo Saxon race. Now race just means what? Seed line. And of course we have the heraldry right here. The lion and a unicorn, meaning what? The rhino. The emblem of the house of Judah, the scepter tribe, was the lion. Micaiah 5:8. Micaiah 5:8. And the remnant of Jacob or Jacob shall be among the Gentiles in the midst of many people, as a lion among the beasts of the forest, as a young lion among the flocks of sheep, who, if he go through, both tread it down and tear it in pieces, and none can deliver. The emblem of the leader of Israel, Ephraim, the birthright tribe, was the unicorn, the wild ox or bull. Deuteronomy 32:16 and 17. Now right here we have this book, Origin of the Anglo-Saxon Race, a study of the settlement of England and the tribal origin of the Old English people, by Thomas William Shore. Of course, we have this book, 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro with Complete Proof, by J.A. Rodgers. And of course, we know that the Bible is talking about the so-called blacks or the Negroes. It says it right here, Jews and Ethiopians. Number 30, the characters of the Bible are largely Negroes. Okay, this is our story. It's our history, law, history, and prophecy. Okay. Of course, we're going to use this book as well, Ancient and Modern Britons, Volume 1 by David McRitchie. Okay. We also have this book right here, Hebrewisms of West Africa. Another book I've used in older videos, The Symbolisms of Heraldry, or a treatise on the meaning and derivations of armorial bearings. Okay. Let you know that these are our people. Of course, the lion represents what? We read of the lion born as an ensign of the tribe of Judah. Okay. Of course, one of my favorites, The Negro Rulers of Scotland and the British Isles by Dr. John L. Johnson. African Presence in Early Europe, Ivan Van Sertima. Of course, J.A. Rodgers, Nature Knows No Color Line. And of course, as we can see, Negroes and coat of arms and nobility. Germany, Portugal, coats of arms in German. Cardinal, note the crown on the Negro's head. So we ruled, 1,000 years, So this notion that, we're all in chains and slavery, that's just a doctrine, okay? It doesn't make sense because we was ruling in these vast or various lands, okay? Of course, some of our people did go into captivity, of course, but we were ruling, and they know this. But, a lot of our people like to use the victimization or the slave mentality and so forth. Okay. Slave is a Slavic word or Russian word. Slavic people. Okay. Negroes and coat of arms of noble families. Moran. Okay. Just to name a few or a couple examples. So now we're in this book, Hebrewisms of West Africa. Okay, the Lost Tribes. Right here it states, Professor Rawlinson of Oxford in assailing the position of those who would derive the Anglo Saxon race from the lost tribes of Israel.
The lost tribes of Israel were black.
Ridicules the attempt and declares that these much lost tribes have been found 100 times by 100 different travelers and in 100 different localities, and goes on to endorse the statement of Kitto. There is scarcely any human race so abject, forlorn, and dwindling located anywhere between the Chinese and American Indians, keyword American Indians, which are the Negroes, Aboriginals or indigenous or original people, who have not been stated to be the 10 tribes, the Anglo Saxons. Towards the middle of the last century, our Israelitish origins by John Wilson revived an old controversy in an effort to derive the Anglo-Saxon race from, pressed by Israel, Egypt or Kemet, Assyria. They finally left Canaan and settled in Ireland. Okay. Now we're at this book, Ancient and Modern Britons, Volume 1, page 16. Okay. And it states, while at fourth, as we see hints that the home, if not the cradle of the white race, was Europe, but there seems little probability of any of these theories, meaning what? It's never been proven, ever becoming substantiated. We have just seen that many scientific men hold that there are some grounds for believing that portions, at least, of Europe have been formerly been inhabited by black, tawny, and copper-colored races. And we are also learning that the white race has not been always confined to the Eastern Hemisphere. Okay? So we were in these lands before them. Okay? Of course, when you think of European, you think of so-called white or Caucasian, because of, our modern society. But in that time period, yes, we were in all those lands because we were the dominant society. Now we're on page 13, and it states, in addition to the black or brown and yellow races already spoken as a prehistoric Europeans, there is a theory that a copper-colored race closely akin to some branches of American Indians once inhabited Europe, or rather the southern parts of Europe and North Africa. Okay. Now we're at this book, 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro with Complete Proof. Ancient Civilizations. Okay. The Grimaldi, a Negro race, lived in Europe as late as 12,000 years ago. 2 complete Grimaldi skeletons are in the Museum of Monaco near Monte Carlo. Abundant traces of their culture have been unearthed in southern and central Europe. Okay. So right here it states, Austria being inhabited by Negroes in the Paleolithic Age, Volume 1, page 55. G.F. Eliot says, whoever they are, the Grimaldi were their grave goods, were the wealthiest and richest of their day and generation. Okay. Prehistoric Man and His Story, page 162, drawing strikingly like those in the caverns of southern France, Spain, and Palestine have been found in South and East Africa. The late Professor R.B. Dixon of Harvard University says that the presence of the Negro in the Paleolithic times has been universally admitted on the northern Mediterranean coast. It continued to be clearly discernible factor in the population of Western Russia until the Middle Ages. Racial History of Mankind, page 478, New York, 1923. Griffin Taylor says next in order in Europe would seem to be the Negrito race, of which more evidence is accumulating every year. We may label the fourth stratum Negroid. These people must have been quite abundant in Europe. I repeat, these people must have been quite abundant in Europe towards the close of the Paleolithic skulls of East Brazil show where similar folk penetrated to the New World. Okay, Environment and Race, page 222, 3, London, 1927. So they wasn't playing around when they were trying to figure out, all this information and whatnot. Now today, no, they like to cover this shit up. Now we're at the origin of the Anglo Saxon race. Okay, I read this book a lot of times as well. Okay, we're gonna go to the chapter that states our dark forefathers. Because original Saxons were so-called black. Chapter 7, our darker forefathers. Now this is a so-called white man or Caucasian with this information, or he's stating this information, okay? So let's see what he says. Let's start at page 73. From what has been said of the presence of broad-headed people of a brunette type, he's talking about the skin complexion based on the 1828 Webster's Dictionary, type in parts of Norway among the much more numerous long-headed people of a fair complexion who form the bulk of the Norwegian nation, it will be seen that the facts point to an early broad-headed brown race, some of whom settled on the Norwegian coast, the long-headed fair race of the typical Norse variety having perhaps subconsciously conquered them. In any case, we find evidence sufficient to justify the inference that probably the early broad-headed people were brown, okay? The same result is obtained by the study of the broad-headed people of Central Europe at the present day, descendants presumably of the old Alpine brown race, okay? Black is a misnomer, okay? It's a byword. When we look at our skin complexions, there are various shades of brown. The same evidence is afforded by the remnant of the Winds, whose skulls are broad and whose complexions are more or less brown at the present day, notwithstanding their fusion with the Germans, okay? We have thus existing in Norway and parts of Germany at the present time people whose ethnological characteristics appear to agree with those of a section of the Anglo Saxon people in England. It does not, of course, admit of proof that the broad-headed skulls which occur in a small minority in Anglo Saxon cemeteries were skulls of people of a brunette complexion, okay? People get thrown off by that word. Similarly, we are unable to prove that the people who are called Bronneren or Brunning in Saxon charters or other documents were broad-headed, but in view of the ethnological survival to the present day in various parts of North Europe from which our Anglo-Saxon forefathers came, which were dark or so-called black, or broad-headed people of the brunette type, we can point in England to the fact that broad skulls are found in Anglo-Saxon graves and to the historical fact that they were brown people in England during the Anglo-Saxon period. And there the evidence must be left. It may, however, be borne in mind that as brown passes into dark brown or black, the literary evidence concerning brown Anglo-Saxons is strengthened by that relating to the black men or to those designated by the old brown black war Seward, okay, James Seward, okay, or King James, and in some cases perhaps even the old word dun, okay. Now we're on page 67, surnames, okay. This consideration of the probable origin of the great proportion of brunettes, meaning what? Brown complexion, okay, the skin, in two of South Midland counties of England leads us to that of color names as surnames and place names, which may probably have been derived from their original settlers. For example, there is the common name brown. This has been derived from the Anglo Saxon bron, signifying brown. It is not reasonable to doubt that when our forefathers called a man brawn or brown, they gave him this name as descriptive of his brown complexion. Okay? And how do we know that? So we're in this book, again, Ancient and Modern Britons, Volume 1. Okay, let's look up surnames. The value of surnames, okay? Let's just read this right here, okay? And yet, in both cases, the male descendants would bear the surname first given to their remote authors, a surname signifying the black man. So now we're at the etymology of the word surname now. 13th century additional name, a name, title, or epithet added to a person's baptismal or Christian name. From sur above, from Latin, super, see sir, name. The word modeled or English from on Anglo-French surnoun, surname, early 14th century. A variant of Old French surnom, from sur over, nom, name. Surnoun also was used in Middle English, usually derived from a quality, achievement, or place. The surnames tended to be passed down and became family names. Hence, the word took the sense of a family's name, a last name, by the late 14th century. This also states hereditary surnames existed among Norman nobility in England in early 12th century. We know that the Normans were so-called black. They were Negroes. Among the common people, they began to be used by the 13th century, increasingly frequent until near universal by the end of the 14th century. The process was later in the north of England than the south. The fact is that most of our surnames are so old that while they argue with considerable force that this or that man is descended from such and such a race, they give us no help in finding out the predominating blood, okay? Nevertheless, the name exists, and with those of topography and of usage already quoted, and with many a record in written and oral history, they emphatically tell us of a large section of our ancestry whose complexion was black. Okay. So now we're on page 173, and it states, Scotland was overrun in one district by Moors of the 15th century, but 5 centuries earlier, the kings of Alpin were Moors, and one of the most celebrated of these, Kenneth or Niger or Dub, ruled over certain districts known as the 3 black divisions, okay? Number 1, England. Number 2, North Ireland. Number 3, Scotland / the Wales. How long before and after that the ascendancy remained with his swarthy nation, okay? And what were the probable fluctuations of color throughout the island? It is impossible to ascertain and premature to discuss, but at any rate, the Moorish races, Nakfaso, Numan, Pictos, were among the chief opponents of the Romans when they marched through Britain 1800 years ago, okay? Now right here, as we can see, I'm not going to read everything. I'll make a part 2 of this video. Israel in the Isles. Now we're in the book of Acts 29, the lost scriptures in the states, and Paul, full of the blessings of the Hamashiach or Christ, and abounding in the Spirit, departed out of Rome, determining to go into Spain, where he had a long time proposed a journey thitherward, and was minded also to go from thence to Britain. For he had heard in Phoenicia that certain of the children of Israel, about the time of the Syrian captivity, had escaped by sea to the isles afar off, as spoken be the prophet Esdras, and called by the Romans Briton. Verse 3, And the Lord Yahweh commanded the gospel to be preached far hence to the Gentiles, meaning what? The nations, and to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, meaning what? The northern kingdom, or Ephraim, right? Verse 4, And no man hindered Paul, for he had testified boldly of Jesus or Yahushua before the tribunes and among the people. And he took with him certain of the brethren which abode with him at Rome, and they took shipping at Ostrom, and having the winds fair, were brought safely into the haven of Spain. Verse 5, and much people were gathered together from the towns and villages in the hill country, for they had heard of the conversion to the apostles and many miracles which he had wrought. Verse 6, and Paul preached mightily in Spain, and great multitudes believed and were converted, for they perceived he was an apostle sent from God. Verse 7, and they departed out of Spain, and Paul and his company, finding a ship in America, sailing into Britain, they were therein, and passing along the south coast, they reached a port called Refinus. This is the Roman name for Sandwich in Kent. In Saxon times, there was still standing in Sandwich an old house called the House of the Apostles, and tradition has it that Paul was one of the apostles. Verse 8, now when it was voiced abroad that the apostle had landed on their coast, great multitudes of the inhabitants met him, and they treated Paul courteously, and he entered in at the east gate of their city, and lodged in the house of a Hebrew, and one of his own nation. Okay, key word, one of his own nation, a Hebrew. Okay, of course, right here, the kings of Ireland and Scotland. Okay, right here, what we just read in the book, Ancient and Modern Britons, Kenneth MacAlpin, or the Nigger, right? Okay, and then we got Robert the Bruce, Robert the Second, Robert the Third, James 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Mary Queen of Scots, James the Sixth and First. Okay, and these were all so-called black people, believe it or not. Okay, this is our history. Okay, Robert the First. What did we see right here? Robert the Second, actually. So Robert the Second, the steward, right? Because we know what steward means, okay? Based upon the book. Okay, steward. Okay, right here, steward. Old, brown, black word, steward. And in some cases, perhaps even by the old word done, meaning what? A swarthy man, okay? And this is our history. I mean, the cat's out of the bag. It's just that if you really want to study it, and, you know, it's called identity theft. That's why everything's fucking whitewashed and shit. And then, you know, all these different factions here in the Americas try to get you to go left and get you to go right. Let's see. The genealogy of the house of David to Jesus, or what we call Yahushua, Christ, the Messiah, 4 BC, continued from before the captivity. And Josias, the king, begat Jeconias, I'm pronouncing it right, Jehoiachin, and his brethren about the time they were carried away to Babylon, and after they were brought to Babylon, okay, Jeconias begot Salatel, pronouncing that right, I probably butchered that word, okay. Okay, but this is the genealogy, okay. Of course, traditional first king of France, Edward the Eighth, George I think that's the 6th, Elizabeth the 2nd. But right here you got the Trojans, okay. Actually, I think it's, let me see something in this book. It's saying something about the Trojan. Okay. Nature knows no color line. Negroes from ancient Greece. Right here it states, at the legendary siege of Troy, black man and woman fought with great courage. One of their kings was Black Memnon of Ethiopia. The herald and companion of Ulysses, hero of Troy, was black, woolly-haired. Can't pronounce that word. Zeus, father of the gods, is in love with Lama, a black princess from Africa. Mila, queen of the gods, originally Assyrian, also worshipped in Greece, was black and associated with misconception. From her comes the word mulatto. Okay, like you get that singer, lotto. Other black Venuses were melanus, from which is derived melanin, or the pigment in the Negro skin, and Skoda, or Skada, Egyptian princess married to a Greek, and from whom it is said the name Scotland originated. She is believed to be the ancestress of the Scots. Okay. And what did we just read? Skoda, the king's daughter. Okay. House of David equals high cedar. Okay. Man, this is real deep. Okay. Real deep. So right here we got the ancient Irish. So right here we have the book Whence the Black Irish of Jamaica by Joseph J. Williams, a Jesuit. It states the history of Black Irish in Jamaica is complex, including the deportation and enslavement of Black Irish and Scots and the Irish diaspora in Jamaica, deportation and enslavement. A Jesuit priest, John J. Williams, wrote Hence the Black Irish of Jamaica in 1932, detailing the deportation and enslavement of Black Irish and Scots in Jamaica. The book includes photographs of some of these Black indigenous Europeans. I repeat, some of these photographs of these Black indigenous Europeans mean what? The original Europeans or original Scots, Celts, etc., who are often forgotten by historians. The ancient British. Okay. Anything that notes to ancient is always referring to people of color. Okay. So we got the Trojans, we got the Franks, we got the French, we got the ancient Irish. Okay. The what's this word? You get the point, but like I said, ancient and modern Britons. So who were these ancient British, so-called black? Right here, the ancient Scandinavians. Okay. So we go into this book. Okay. So right here we have the African presence in the early history of the British Isles in Scandinavia. Okay. Let's look at some of these illustrations. Okay. Africoid, a woman's head on a Viking jewel. Note the facial features and compare the headdress with that of figure 4B, Queen Tai of the 18th dynasty. Okay, it was during the 18th dynasty that Scandinavia was introduced to the Bronze Age by a intrusion of outsiders, and it was also during the 18th dynasty when Thutmose III dominion was supposed to have reached northern Asia. Okay, sources for the Vikings, so forth. Okay, right here. Okay. The dancer figurine from the Bronze Age Scandinavia. Note the mid-body garment and compare it with the dancer's stance with figure 5B, an ancient Kemetic dancer acrobat. Okay. Let's see. Right here, the hoop earring, of course. A fertility figurine from the Scandinavian Bronze Age. Note the large earring and general Africoid appearance. Okay. Another fertility figurine from the Bronze Age Scandinavia. Hammer of the North. Okay. Looks like a boxer, huh? At least to me it does. Right here. A dark-skinned, woolly hair, prominent individual from a 10th century AD Danish stone motif. Source the Viking O. Madison, 1976. Okay. So right here it states blue, the exact color to which GMC term applies varies in older dialects. MHG, BLA is also yellow, whereas the Scandinavian words may refer especially to a deep, swarthy black, e.g. ON, Balmar. Now, emphasis on this word right here, Negro, meaning what? Buck. Okay, the blue man. Let's see. Okay. A woolly-haired Swedish warrior of the Viking age. So they know. They know.